Okay, so we continue on in 2.5 with some examples that you might see on an exam. You're going to have the warm and fuzzy question of having to create a box plot by hand like we did in the last example, but you're also going to have some potentially questions where I give you box plots and then ask you questions about them. So in this exercise, we're given a box plot with monthly spending for 160 high school students on their cell phone. All right, so we had the first question here. For the 80 students who spent the least, the spread is greater or less than the spread for the 80 students who spent the most each month. So I want you guys to take a moment, think about this, decide what you think the answer is, and then come back. The key here is that we're starting with 160 students. So when we talk about the 80 students who spent the least versus the 80 students who spent the most, well, we're just dividing this in half. So this is going to be median, and the most will be on this side versus the least on this side. And then we're trying to figure out where the spread is the most. So we can easily look here and see the spread is 8 on that upper half versus 28 on the lower half. So the 80 students who spent the least have far more spread in their data than those who spent the most. Now our last question for this one says, we're trying to find the number of students who spend less than $32. So again, I'm going to give you a moment to try this on your own, see if you can get the right answer. In fact, I'm not going to give you the answer. I'm actually going to have you tell me what the answer is in Edpuzzle. So this will be our Edpuzzle question. And I will tell you guys what the answer is tomorrow in class. Or not tomorrow, Tuesday in class. I'm going to skip the next exercise. It's another warm and fuzzy question, but I'm going to do it to start class on Tuesday. That way everyone will have seen at least one example with me there and can ask questions before you get the worksheet where you have to do this 2 more times. So I'm going to skip that one and move straight ahead to 2.5.4. So another one where we're just interpreting a box plot. Now we've got a little bit more. We're looking at case prices of wines for different areas along the Finger Lakes. And so we're looking at comparing these 3 different areas or vineyards in the Finger Lakes for how much their wine is. As you can see, we've got 3 different locations and then the box plots for those 3 locations. So I urge you, take a moment, pause the video and try to answer these 5 questions and then come back and see if you got the answers right. First question says, which lake region produces the most expensive wine? So not in general most expensive, just the most expensive bottle of wine. So we're just looking at the maxes for each of these different regions, and we can easily see Seneca has the largest maximum value or case price here. The cheapest wine, same idea. We only care about the overall cheapest case, and that is also in Seneca. And now we get the question that we might have misinterpreted as, where are the wines generally more expensive? And this is where you want to look at the actual box itself, because that middle 50% is a really good indication of a general or typical case of wine. So in this case, Cayuga has the highest box right here. So it is our most expensive in general or typically case of wine. And then we have 2 last questions here. Which region has the largest spread if you use the range? So largest range is, remember, just max minus min. And we could actually calculate this for all of them, but there's no reason to. We can actually look at each of these and see there's a huge spread in Seneca versus the other 2. And then our last one, which region has the largest spread if you use the IQR, the interquartile range? Remember, this is Q3 minus Q1. So now we're not looking at the overall spread. We're looking at just from Q3 to Q1, basically the length of the box portion of the box plot. And looking at these 3 box plots, it appears that our largest IQR is in Cayuga. All right. So, last question, 2.5.5. I'm going to actually go ahead and leave this as your 2 answers, your 2 things two more questions for your ed puzzle. So in this question, I'll tell you a little bit about it before we move on, and I let you just do the ed puzzle question. We're looking at males and females versus weights. So we can see here, males seem to be generally heavier than the females. And now you have two questions. One's a multiple choice, looking for what is not correct, so be very careful there. And the other one is asking for 25% of the males in class weigh at least what amount. Now I want us to be very careful here. If we're talking about at least what amount, that's a greater than or equal to. So just make sure you read back your answer and that it actually makes sense. So I'm going to give you those two as an ed puzzle, and then we'll go ahead and tackle them both in class on Tuesday in case you had any issues.